All right, so ready to jump into another deep dive.
Absolutely. Always excited to explore these fascinating texts.
Today, we're going all the way back. I mean, as far back as it
Oh,
gets.
I know where you're headed with this.
We're talking Genesis 1, the beginning of the Bible.
It's a creation story. Those first few verses are so powerful.
Exactly. Genesis 1 from the King James Version. But we're not tackling the whole chapter today. We're focusing on just the first two verses.
Really diving deep. I like it.
Those opening lines, they set the stage for, well, everything. They tell us how it all began, and there's just so much packed into them.
Even just those two verses, you can spend hours unpacking the language and the imagery.
Okay, so let's not waste any time. Verse 1. It's short and sweet, but boy, is it powerful. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth.
Simple yet profound. Like, it just throws us right into the heart of things. No build-up, no context, just boom, creation.
It's a statement, right? A declaration. This is how it is.
Absolutely, and it establishes God right from the start. God is the central actor, the ultimate source of everything, the creator.
And then there's this whole concept of the beginning. I don't know about you, but I find that idea almost impossible to grasp. Was there
Right.
nothing before that?
Right. It's one of those big questions that has puzzled philosophers and theologians for centuries. What was before the beginning? Some interpret this as what's called creatio ex nihilo. Latin fancy basically means creation out of nothing.
So God didn't need anything to work with, just poof, everything comes into being.
Exactly. It speaks to the absolute power of God, the ability to create something from nothing.
Wow. Okay, so we have this incredibly powerful act of creation in verse 1. Then we move on to verse 2, and it gets really interesting. It starts describing the state of the earth just after it was created.
And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And I love this part. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters.
Yeah, it's so evocative. It's like you can just picture this scene. You know, it's dark, it's empty, and then there's this movement.
It shifts, right. We go from this statement of creation to this vivid description. It's almost like the camera's zooming in, giving us a close-up of this primordial state. Without form and void. Those words are so powerful. It paints this picture of complete emptiness, a lack of order.
The ultimate blank canvas. I mean, that's what it is, right? The raw material for everything that's going to come after.
Exactly. And then it gets even more intriguing. You have this mention of the Spirit of God moving upon the waters.
And, okay, I got to ask, what exactly is the Spirit of God? It's something we encounter throughout the Bible, but it always feels a little mysterious.
You're telling me. This is one of the most debated concepts in theology. There's so many different interpretations. Some see it as a distinct entity, part of the Trinity, separate from God, but also part of God.
Okay, that makes my head spin a little.
Yeah, it's complex. Others interpret it more as an aspect of God's power, a manifestation of God's presence and energy. But either way, it's clearly a force that's actively involved in this process of creation.
So we've got God, the Creator, and then this Spirit, connected to God in some way, bringing life and motion to the waters. And speaking of water, it's interesting how much emphasis there is on water in these verses.
Right. Water is such a powerful symbol in so many creation myths. Think about it. It's formless, it's fluid, it's constantly changing. It can be both destructive and life-giving. I think it represents this idea of potential.
Like a seed, just waiting to sprout.
Exactly. And it also kind of ties back to this idea of chaos that we see in verse 2. It's this primordial substance out of which everything else will eventually emerge.
Okay, so just from these two verses, we've covered a lot of ground. We have God's power to create, this idea of creation out of nothing, this mysterious Spirit of God, and the potential of this primordial chaos. What else is there to say about just these two little verses?
Well, that's the amazing thing. I mean, they're just the beginning, but they raise so many more questions. Like, how exactly does this formless void become the world we know? How does God shape and order this chaos? What's the role of the Spirit in all of this?
So many big questions. It really makes you want to keep reading, right? It's like we've just opened the door to this incredible story.
And what's so cool is that these themes we see here, they're echoed throughout the entire Bible. It's all connected.
I definitely encourage everyone listening to continue exploring Genesis 1 and really the whole creation narrative. You'll be amazed at how much depth and beauty there is to uncover.
It's a journey worth taking, and if you're interested in different interpretations, there are so many resources out there.
All right, until our next deep dive, keep those questions coming.
Happy reading.